Welcome to a new episode of the Hybrid Cloud Partners podcast. I'm thrilled that you're joining us today. Over the past couple of weeks, we've talked to two partners that are indirect providers. They provide that perspective, the support that they bring to MSPs and hybrid cloud partners, and especially in the small and medium business side. And today we have another key strategic partner that has worked with hundreds, if not thousands, of our partners. First, we do have an announcement. I have our co-host here, Adam Burke. What's it all about, Adam?
Yeah, hey, Fede. Good to be back with you here, and super excited to be at Ignite here in just a few short weeks. If you're a fan of the podcast and interested in what we talk about, we have a session that I think will be super relevant for you. It's all around profitable SPLA modernization for ISVs and hybrid cloud providers. So if you go to aka.ms/IgniteDCO, if you're registered and coming to Ignite here in Chicago, you can find the session there, add it to your schedule. We would love to see you there.
Absolutely. We love connecting with you virtually, and we are really appreciative of you listening, but we would love to see your faces and talk to you in person. So looking forward to that in Chicago, Adam's homeland. We are really thrilled to have Nerdio in the room with us today. We have Joseph Landis, who is the Chief Revenue Officer and co-founder of Nerdio. How are you doing today?
It's good to be here. And like Adam, although I don't live there anymore, I was born and raised in Chicago.
Yeah, Joseph, you are a world traveler. Actually, before we jump in, you probably get the title of most countries visited and potentially most time on an airplane by folks that have been on this podcast. But what number are you at now? Where are we at?
I've been to 109 countries in my life. I have this real deep desire to visit every country in the world and meet people from every country in the world. I think that really kind of improves your quality of life and your perspective on things. And I love, as part of my role leading sales and marketing at Nerdio, I love visiting customers and partners. I had this great manager. I worked at Microsoft for 23 years. I had this great manager, Paula Belizia, who said that the truth is found at the customer and the partner. So the more time I could spend doing that, I think Nerdio is better for that.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's a great quote. And definitely from being a LinkedIn fan of yours, I see you live that out. So that's awesome.
I think we can't travel 109 countries through this podcast, but we can extract all the wisdom from Joseph. How does that sound, Adam?
That's perfect. Yeah. So Joseph, maybe you could just start by telling us a little bit about Nerdio. Why did you help start the company? What's your mission?
Yeah, so thank you so much, Adam and Fede, for having me on your podcast. So like I mentioned, I worked at Microsoft for 23 years. In the last 10 years or so, I was working really pretty deeply in the Azure ecosystem. I was living in Brazil and living in India doing that. And I realized that one of the biggest areas of opportunities that we had at Microsoft was the SMB space, and was really helping small and medium businesses move to the cloud. And over time, I realized that the best way to do that is to impact the MSP, or the managed service provider, who really provides the technology to the SMBs. And if we could get more managed service providers to build a successful cloud practice using Microsoft Azure, we would achieve success. And ultimately, I was so bought into that mission that I decided to leave Microsoft, which was a very difficult decision. But I built a company with my co-founder, Vadim Vladimirsky, 100% on top of Microsoft native technology. And our original mission was to empower MSPs to build a successful cloud practice in Microsoft Azure. We have a product today, Nerdio Manager for MSP, that does just that. You could be an MSP who's never done anything in Microsoft Azure, but you know that that's the place to go, that you really don't want to invest anymore in on-prem hardware. Maybe you have a data center, a colo, maybe you've installed a server at an MSP site, and you realize that that's not really what it's all about anymore. And with Nerdio Manager, we will help you price out an environment, deploy it within 60 minutes or less, manage the environment in a multi-tenant and cross-tenant way, and cost optimize the environment so that you could save as much money as possible, so that you could redeploy those funds into buying other Microsoft services. So it's really a full multi-tenant management platform for MSPs. That's why we started the company. We've since expanded out to many other use cases. but it's a very relevant and very important use case in the market today.
Yeah, Joseph, I think that's super relevant. And I think one of the key points, too, that always resonates with me is Nerdio was really built from the ground up for MSPs. So it's not like an MSP is trying to take your technology and integrate it with all the additional complexities that an MSP deals with versus maybe a traditional enterprise customer. You all really kind of started out of the gate with MSPs as the key customer.
Yeah, that's right. So first of all, my co-founder Vadim ran an MSP in Chicago that was at that time known as Adar for many years, and that was really where the idea of Nerdio was incubated. The idea being that he wanted to create software that would make it easier for him to manage all of his customers in the cloud, and then kind of came upon this idea that well, maybe that software could actually be sold to other MSPs who are looking to do the same thing. Many of our employees have either owned or worked at an MSP. So we always like to say that we legitimately can walk in an MSP's shoes and understand really what they're looking to do and create solutions that make it a lot easier for them and really speak their language when it comes to leveraging the totality of the Microsoft Cloud.
That is wonderful, and I'm sure our listener understands why we're so excited to have you here, Joseph, and how much any MSP can only benefit from your products and services, but also learn from the Nerdio experience, if I may call it that. So, kind of like inversing this relationship, what has been that big lesson that you've learned, or that big insightful surprise that you gotten out of working with MSP so closely over the past few years?
Well, there's a lot, Fede. There's definitely a lot. It's hard to pick one. We could probably have, hours-long podcast about lessons that we've learned, mistakes that we've made. But I think one of the core values that drives us as a company when it comes to working with MSPs is simplicity. And we have a phrase that we use at Nerdio. We call it three-click management. We want every task that an MSP has to do using Nerdio Manager to be able to be accomplished in 3 clicks or less. And we're pretty much 99% of the way there. Sometimes it might be 4 clicks, it could be 5 clicks, but most things are 3 clicks. And there's many ways to do things, right? I mean, there's many ways to accomplish things in technology, but we've always felt that if we could simplify the lives of MSPs, they will be more attracted to work with us, because the life of an MSP every day is very complicated. They have many, many technologies that they need to worry about, many issues they need to think about, many customers calling them. So if nothing else, if we can make their lives a lot simpler, if we can help them do something, let's say in Microsoft Azure, managing a customer, adding a virtual machine, changing out the memory, adding a user, if we can help them do it in the simplest way possible, we think that will allow an MSP to naturally and organically grow in the Microsoft Cloud.
Yeah, I think there's a ton of value there that I see you all provide to our, joint partners. It's an interesting time to be an MSP too, because, when you're an MSP, I think you're always faced with the challenge of keeping up with the market. And from a market standpoint, I think if we look at the last 12 to 18 months, there has been a huge focus on both AI and cyber security. What trends do you see or observe from a market standpoint around AI or security that's really, further accelerating this demand for cloud services?
So Adam, let me first say something which I think is another core value of Nerdio's, which is when we started our company, we always felt that it was important to lead with education and follow with selling. And 6 years into running this company, it's still, one of the primary core values of our company, because as you say, the life of an MSP is complicated. There's a lot of new technologies, AI, cybersecurity, many other things that are hitting them at once. So we run, for example, these things called Nerdio training camps where MSPs come for 2 days with their laptops open, and we show them step by step how to move to the Microsoft Cloud. And we always encourage other ISVs in the space to really adopt that, educate first. MSPs want to be educated. They want to get smarter on the different technologies. Certainly there's no question about it that you can't go anywhere, you can't read anything, you can't listen to a podcast without hearing something about AI. AI is certainly top of mind of many MSPs. Certainly Copilot from Microsoft is something that a lot of MSPs are looking at, thinking about how to infuse AI into their processes in a way that, again, will simplify their lives, that will reduce repetitive tasks. And that's something that we're thinking about at Nerdio a lot. Is there a way, for example, for someone to use Azure AI to query the Nerdio knowledge base and just get an answer to a question? So a simple question that maybe a tech has at an MSP about how to support a customer, rather than calling into Nerdio, can they query a bot using Azure AI that gives them the answer, that gives them sort of the step-by-step. You also mentioned cybersecurity. It's very interesting when you go to any MSP event over the past 5 years, let's call it, including one that, as we're recording this session today, I happen to be at in Houston. I know when I go down to the show floor in about an hour that 70% of the vendors who are displaying are cybersecurity companies. And I think that it's not sort of by chance that is the case. Cybersecurity is one of the most pressing issues that MSPs face. They're constantly concerned whether or not their customers are going to have some kind of a security incident, and they're constantly secured with providing the most up-to-date and multi-layered security. But I'll say, and this is a message that I say to many MSPs that are out there and buying all these technologies, and I think it's great that people are investing in cybersecurity. Remember one thing: probably 99.9% of MSPs in the world are using Microsoft 365 today, right? I mean, there's almost nobody not using Microsoft 365. What technology comes with Microsoft 365 already? You're already paying for it. Defender. Defender is a great set of technologies that come with Microsoft 365, and not enough MSPs are leveraging it. Now, I think that comes back to education, and that's something that Nerdio is now taking on. By the time people listen to this podcast, you're going to see some announcements that we've recently made around really upping the game in terms of helping MSPs leverage the existing investment they're making in Microsoft 365 around things like Intune and Defender and the Microsoft 365 tools itself. So I would say to an MSP, definitely go out there and look at all the amazing technologies that are available when it comes to cybersecurity and AI. And then also look at what you're already purchasing from Microsoft to see how that incredible set of technologies can fit into your practice.
That is wonderful. And speaking about that evolution, as we were emailing back and forth to get this set up, we were talking about the RDS, or the remote desktop opportunity, right? Which is something that we constantly see with the MSPs that we have, that they're still, deploying the solution on-prem under SPLA. And it's something that I know it's a core value of what Nerdio offers to MSPs. So can you speak to that and what you all can offer for partners that are along this journey?
Yeah, I was thinking of a good analogy or metaphor to use with people who might be listening to this podcast about RDS. I mean, RDS was a tremendous technology that was created something like 23 years ago, right? I mean, I think RDS came out with Windows 2000. And at the time, that was the way, so let's say 24 years, that was the way, if you as an MSP wanted to deploy a virtual desktop, that's how you did it, using RDS. And Microsoft still sells RDS CALs, probably to people who are listening to this podcast, and many people have grown up with that technology. But the truth is, if you were building a house, let's say, again, this is the best analogy I could come up with, others might have better analogies. If you're buying a house, building a house rather, you probably wouldn't install Windows that are 24 years old, no pun intended, right? You would you sort of get like the most up-to-date, double-paned, weatherproof windows, because you don't want your house to be cold. You don't want, the snow to come in or the rain to come in. So I kind of think about that the same way. If you're an MSP and you want to deploy a customer into a virtual desktop scenario, why would you use the technology that's 24 years old? Why wouldn't you use Azure Virtual Desktop, Windows 365? Why wouldn't you leverage the incredible progress that Microsoft has made in desktop as a service and desktop virtualization, in Windows in the cloud, as Microsoft refers to it as? Like, what would be stopping you from doing that? I can't think of a reason that someone who's deploying a new customer today would want to deploy them new in RDS. Now, what about all of you who are listening who have an existing installed base of RDS? Well, probably managing those licenses is kind of complicated. You have to sort of figure out how many RDS CALs you need. You have to figure out how to license up all the different RD roles and the different you have to license up every VM. You have to think about Office 365 and that piece and how that's licensed. You're already with Windows 10, Windows 11 Enterprise, you have the entitlement for Azure Virtual Desktop. Why not leverage that entitlement and move to the more modern way of doing desktop virtualization? And that's where Nerdio can come in and help, because we know not everyone is necessarily skilled or knows that much yet about AVD or Windows 365, and leveraging an ISV like Nerdio, who builds on top of a native AVD in Windows 365, where you don't need any custom agents or custom clients. Everything is native in the Azure portal. That is really, I think, where the magic happens between Nerdio and Microsoft. So I think it's a tremendous opportunity for an MSP to modernize and to leverage the incredible investments that Microsoft has made in AVD and Windows 365.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that analogy. It's interesting too, because the incremental value that you get with AVD, I think especially around the client OS, is a big driver. And if I think back to the time, prior to AVD, that was always a key question we would get from partners is, I want a true Windows client. And, in AVD, you now get that, right? You can actually have a true Windows client OS experience.
We run into MSPs, maybe more, let's say, global MSPs who have customers in many different countries, right? And what they're able to do is deploy the end user's desktop in the specific data center that's closest to the end user, right? So maybe you have let's say, an MSP who's managing a more global law firm, and they have some users in Singapore, and they have some users in London, and they have some users in Chicago. Well, those users' desktops can be in the Azure data center that's closest to them, which is a much more modern way of doing things than in the older RDS technology. And I think you're right, Adam, leveraging so many of the improvements that have been made in the OS, in things like Teams for multimedia redirection. There's sort of a whole list of reasons why folks should move away from RDS and over to AVD and Windows 365 as well.
Yeah. No, I love the point about kind of geographic location and being able to optimize for that. Because, if you're a remote desktop user, latency is usually your number one enemy, right? And so the fact that with AVD you can optimize that, I think that's huge.
Here's another one for you, right? There was people are aware of a very large cybersecurity incident some number of months ago with a very large cybersecurity provider. And I remember walking through the airport in Newark, and you had these technicians that were basically crawling under screens, having to plug in a USB key to kind of reboot and take the system back to a pristine state. If you were running Windows 365 or AVD, you simply had to revert back to the day before, and everybody's desktops were up and running, and there were no issues at all. Nobody who was running AVD or Windows 365 reported any issues. People asked us in Nerdio, did you have a lot of people calling in during that cybersecurity incident? We said, no, none of our customers. I think we had one customer calling in to make sure they were doing it the right way to roll back by a day or two. But another reason why streaming your desktop from the cloud really makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that flexibility and the ability to have those, logical or virtual solutions, I should say, versus physical. Yeah, huge benefit there.
I just want to say, beyond all the customer and client experience that we were discussing, it's also what you were saying in the beginning about simplify. So it's deployment and the monthly costs that you were saying, MSPs, that time is so valuable. So leave aside the awesome experience. It's also how complicated it is for them to manage that.
I agree with that, Betty. I think if you ask us what are some of the reasons that an MSP might not want to modernize and move to the cloud, there's this false perception that moving to Azure is more expensive than staying on-prem. And we've shown over and over and over again how that's not the case.
We get it a lot.
Yeah, putting aside depreciation, all kinds of different things, when it comes to what is the cost to put a user into Azure using Nerdio and leveraging some of the amazing programs that Microsoft has, things like reserved instances, Azure Hybrid Benefit, and then coupling that with technology like autoscaling from Microsoft, it is significantly less money to put a user per month into the cloud than keeping them on-prem. And again, that allows an MSP to simplify, as you say, Fede, and to save money and to have a more attractive offer to their clients relative to the MSP down the road who might not be doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's say our listeners are, interested in what they're hearing. They want to learn more. I love what you mentioned earlier about kind of leading with education first. And I think you all have a great event coming up here, right? With NerdioCon, which is a kind of the educational event that you deliver on an annual basis.
We do. I'll tell you 3 or 4 things to get in touch with us and things you want to be a part of if you're a listener. So again, in the theme of starting with education, leading with education, you're correct. We have a large format event called NerdioCon. This will be the 5th year that we've run it. Microsoft is the lead sponsor every year. It's going to be April 7th to the 10th, 2025 in Palm Springs, California. Wherever you are in the world, you're welcome to come. We get people coming from all over the world. It is a huge Microsoft Education Fest, Microsoft Cloud Education Fest. We always say, if you want to come to the place where the engineering leaders of the technology that you're deploying are at, and you want to just sort of stand by the pool and have a conversation with them about something, they are there. Scott Manchester, who runs engineering for AVD and Windows 365, he is there, and he would love to chat with you about those technologies. So we have keynotes. We have about 10 keynotes. We have about 55 or so breakout sessions on different topics, super deep technical, more business leadership. And it's done in a fun location where you sort of get to chat with people and chat with your peers who might be doing this in a very fun and easygoing way. We also run what I mentioned earlier, Nerdio training camps. So again, Nerdio training camps are 2-day events. We run them all over the world where you could have any level of education. You could have never moved to the cloud. You may have some customers in the cloud. Come and learn for 2 days. It's totally free, and we pay for your hotel room and food. So we'd love to have you at one of those. The 2025 list of locations will be on our website. That's the third thing I wanted to tell you is if you want to reach out to us, go up to getnerdio.com, and we'd love to hear from you. Any question you have, it could be super basic. It could be, the most advanced question. We'd love to chat with you. And if none of those things work, just email me at jlandes, JLANDES at getnerdio.com, and I'd love to chat with you about anything as well.
And I believe we were negotiating a little bit before this call about getting us a sweet deal for our listeners.
Thank you for reminding me. So if anyone who's listening to this call wants to come to Nerdio, just mention that you were on this podcast, you were listening to this podcast with Adam and Fede, and we will waive the registration fee for NerdioCon for you. We would love to have you there. Just mention it when you're registering, and we'll waive the registration fee for you to come.
That's awesome. Thank you for that.
I hear a rumor that Adam and Fede might be there also, so we'll see.
Yeah, let's make it happen.
Hope to see you there.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll have a dedicated talk about all this RDS opportunity that we see.
Well, what we could do is we could actually run a special version of the podcast from Palm Springs.
That'll be even better, right?
That'd be a good background. I'm in.
Now let's talk about the future, right, Joseph? Like I feel like we would be irresponsible if we didn't ask you with everything that you are learning every single day, every mile you travel. How do you see the next 5 years shaping up? And I'll leave this open-ended because I want to see what's top of mind for you.
Yeah, 5 years is a long time. Whenever I interview someone to come and work at Nerdio and they ask me, where do you see the company in 5 years? I sort of am a little bit flummoxed and I'm not sure really what to say. But here's what I could tell you is, again, it all starts with the truth being at the partner and the customer. So as you say, our whole team is out there every day speaking to partners, speaking to MSPs and asking them, where can we help you? Where can we help you achieve more? And I think there's a few truths that we learn. One is that they're all betting on the Microsoft Cloud. The vast majority of MSPs, if not every MSP, is a Microsoft partner. They're leveraging Microsoft 365, and they want to bet on the Microsoft Cloud. So I think the investments that we're looking at making. And again, I don't know the precise date people are going to be listening to this podcast, because I know these podcasts live on for a long time. But we're making some very interesting announcements in November of 2024 at the ConnectWise IT Nation Connect show, where we're going to announce a much deeper integration into the broader Microsoft 365, let's say, suite of products. Because as it turns out, Azure's the foundation, and that's a huge investment. Virtual desktops is a foundational element that's also a huge investment of ours. But as it turns out, MSPs, they really want to leverage a lot more of Microsoft 365. So when it comes to things like Intune, they want to be leveraging Intune. Intune comes, it's an amazing product. It comes as part of Microsoft 365. Far too few MSPs are using Intune. Why? For a lot of the same reasons that far too few MSPs have been leveraging Azure. They find it a little bit complicated. It's not multi-tenant. They want to be able to learn how to do it in a more simplified way. We are the company, we are the ISV that's going to help MSPs fully leverage Microsoft Intune in partnership with Microsoft. The same goes for Defender. You're going to see a lot bigger investment from Nerdio in helping MSPs leverage Defender as well. So when I think about the future, we see a continued significant opportunity in helping MSPs and helping IT professionals around the world leverage the power of the Microsoft Cloud, and really helping IT pros become heroes in their organization for really betting on Microsoft and betting on the Microsoft Cloud.
I love that. I'll just say that I love asking someone that's a co-founder or C-level executive what they see the future like, because analysts will tell you what they think it looks like. Co-founders will tell you where they're investing, and you're really like walking that talk. So I love that we ask you in general, and you're like, yeah, this is where we're putting our money and efforts in, because that's going to be the future that we're painting.
It is, and it's kind of funny. I mean, we started with just a few people, Vadim and I, and the company has grown in partnership with Microsoft. We've done so much together. But when newer founders come and ask, for advice, whatever, modest advice we could give, it's the same thing I told you. Spend as much time with customers and partners as you can. They will put you on the right path to success.
Wonderful.
Yeah, definitely can't go wrong spending time with your customers. To that end, what advice do you have for MSPs as they start to explore hybrid and cloud solutions? Because we really have, SPLA partners that are at all ends of the spectrum. We have, many SPLA partners that have very robust cloud and hybrid businesses. And then we have some that actually haven't started in the cloud. They're still really 100% in the data center today. And they're not sure really kind of where to go. They see the market demand. Sometimes their customers are asking for it and they're not sure how to respond. Like, what do you say to those folks?
Yeah, so I'll say a few things, Adam. So first of all, I'll say to any MSP, wherever you are on the journey, you are most likely already a Microsoft partner. Don't fool around with exploring other clouds. There's not really any upside to being a multi-cloud MSP. People talk about multi-cloud, and that's a great thing. You are already a Microsoft partner. You are leveraging Microsoft's identity. Why would you fool around with trying to start building a multi-cloud MSP? I don't think that that's the right path to go. I would much rather, as an MSP, leverage the full power of the Microsoft Cloud and get as deep as you can into not just the base infrastructure, but all the new services. Obviously, we talked about AI, but the full data and AI stack. There's so much to learn and so much to leverage that I think making a bet and winning somewhere before you try to win everywhere is the first piece of advice I would give you. And then I think the second piece of advice I would say, and this is probably much more directed at data center providers or MSPs who are maybe leveraging a data center, and they're being given advice by a friend or a technology consultant saying, no, you've already amortized your cost in the data center. Just stay where you are. Don't listen to your friend. Don't listen to that consultant. Like that is not, I hate to say that's not where the future is. It's not where the present is, right? People always say like, oh, that's not where the future is. It's not where technology is today. if you are running a business that's 100% based on some investment you made in a colo, and you have some number of racks in a data center somewhere, and you're you're the MSP owner that gets woken up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and you have to run to some building in the cold. You have to put your snowshoes on and figure out like why is why did the cable fall off of the server? Let Microsoft deal with all that. They have much more capable people who are running data centers all over the world. Take advantage of the investment that Microsoft is making and make that move. Free yourself of all that complication and simplify your life so you could focus on much higher value tasks to bring value to the customers that you're supporting. Like that can't be the value that you bring as an MSP owner or technician, that how to be the person that goes into the data center in the middle of the night and fixes things. That just can't be the way, right? So that's not where the world is. So I think if that's the advice you're getting, or if you're sort of tethered to the past, you have this inertia that's pulling you to the past because you've always done it that way, you have to find a way to break free of the inertia and embrace and adopt the investments that Microsoft's making to allow you to be a much more successful and more profitable MSP.
Joseph, thank you so much for that awesome advice and that ending us on a high note. We promise you that we'll write down in our show notes the invitation to NerdioCon, of course, with the DCO discount, all your training camps and other activities, your announcements that will be out by the time this comes out. And we'd love to see you at Ignite and see you at NerdioCon next year.
That'll be great. We will be there in a big way in Ignite. We're very excited about it. We have some sessions and a booth and some fun stuff for attendees. And we certainly would love to see people at NerdioCon or at a training camp. And you could go to multiple training camps. And even if you feel like you know a lot about it, we even have advanced training camps you could come to. So we'd love to have you learn whatever way you want and call on us with any question, large or small. Thank you so much, Adam and Fede, for having me on your show, and really appreciate the opportunity.
It's been our honor, Joseph. And for our listener, stay tuned. We have more to come before we wrap up our year. So if you're going to be at Ignite, please reach out. I hope you recognize our faces by now. And if not, we'll come up with a recap after Ignite and to end the year on a really exciting note. Thank you so much. And remember, subscribe. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Stay tuned for more insights and stories from Microsoft's data center optimization team. Be sure to stay connected at dco.microsoft.com or wherever you get your favorite podcasts.